Hello everyone, it's Eride Ranger here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Eride Pro SS 3.0. And if you're like me, you are super excited for this bike and are a little sad that the product page is missing a lot of key details. So today we're going to be going through what we do have, what we can glean from the photos, and what Surronster has said in his video about the new bike. We're going to be breaking this video down into 8 parts. We're going to talk about the battery, the motor and controller, the suspension, the wheels and tires, the transmission, the controls and different functions, the frame and different measurements, and finally we're going to do a price comparison. Alright, so let's start things off by talking about the battery. Right on the product page it tells us that it's 72 volt, 50 amp hour, and multiply those two numbers together and you get 3600 watt hours. And that's huge, larger than any other stock bike on the market right now. Well, any other 72 stock bike on the market right now anyways. We don't have any great pictures of the battery itself, but we can see that it's got this charge port off on the left side, just like the 2.0 model. And it's pretty safe to say that it's probably got the same connections as the 2.0 model, with this surround style plug here and additional plug down here, and just the button to see the battery lights indicate the charge. Now this 2.0 battery was only 40 amp hours, so being a little bit smaller, it weighed in at 33.5 pounds. It's safe to say that the 3.0 battery is going to weigh a couple pounds more than that, probably high 30s or even low 40s. One thing I do want to note on the product page for this is that it says swappable lithium battery, which is normal, except that the other Eride models all say Samsung swappable lithium battery. So I don't know if they're not Samsung cells anymore or if they just chose not to include that on their product page this time. But if we take a look at the battery versus others in this bike's class, we've got the SS 2.0, the Talaria MX5, the RAR Mantis X 72 volt, and the Surron Light BX, which is only 60 volts. The Pro SS 3.0 has 50 amp hours, more than any of the others, and the highest watt hours out of all the others. So the Pro SS 3.0 is the clear winner in this category. Now let's talk about the motor and controller. From the product page itself, it says it's a 6 kilowatt rated power and 15.8 kilowatt peak power motor. Surronster also tells us that the controller is 15 kilowatt. So it's safe to say this controller is 72 volt, 15 kilowatt. Now, nothing tells us the type of motor, but if we look at the 2.0, it had a PMSM, permanent magnet synchronous motor. So it's probably safe to say that's the same. So what does all this power mean? Well, it means it can reach up to 62 miles per hour. And if we compare that motor to others, it's got more kilowatts nominal power and more kilowatts peak power than anything else in its class. And that results in higher speeds than anything else in its class as well. Barely beating out the MX5 Pro, but handily beating the 2.0 and other bikes in this same class. So, Eride Pro SS 3.0 takes the crown on this one again. Alright, now it's time for suspension, and here's where things get interesting because I found out some good information for you guys. Right from this product page, it tells us it's a closed cartridge suspension, and it's by Fastace, the Fastace Adjustable Sport Suspension. Now, Surronster tells us that it has Japanese fork seals, and we can see that as these little red caps on here. But if we take a look at the picture, we get a product number, Fastace BDA53RC. So I looked that up, and sure enough, it's right on their website. So if you want more information about this rear shock, it's right here for you. But I also found the front fork on the Fastace website. So if you're wondering what that one was, it is the ALX13RC 2.0. So if you want to know more about the front fork, here it is. It just doesn't have all this branding on it. And those definitely match the forks in the pictures for the product. Alright, now let's talk about the wheels and tires. So right from the product page, we know that it's 2.75 inches wide by 19-inch diameter front tire and 3 inches wide by 18-inch diameter rear wheel. And if you want to compare this to some other sizes on the market right now, everything's got pretty much the same front. The rear is where things change quite a bit, and that's just all down to preference. The widest rear tire is actually the RAR Mantis 72 Volt X, but it's also got the smallest size on there. And the narrowest rear tire is the Surron Light BX with 2.75. Now, Surronster also mentioned that there is a new hub and spoke design, and we can see that here. Looks pretty beefy. And if you want to compare that to the 2.0, they don't have great photos, but you can see it is not as beefy. They just kind of connect in there. Now, Surronster also told us that these are exclusive dual sport tires, and they're similar to the Shinko 241s. But if we look closely on this close-up image, we can see that it says Chow, and it's got this little symbol here. So I did some digging, and I found Chaoyang tires with that same logo. However, I could not find this exact tire on their website, so it is indeed exclusive. While we're on the subject of wheels, let's talk about the brakes and rotors. So these are new DOT4 brakes, and if you compare that to everything else stock on the market, it's 4-piston hydraulic brakes. So these are going to have quite a bit more stopping power, which is perfect for those higher speeds. One of the most common upgrades on these stock bikes are brakes. It's just nice to feel secure in your stopping power when you're traveling at such high speeds. Now for the rotors, it doesn't say specifically anywhere on here. Surronster did mention that they are thicker, but that's the only change he mentioned. So I'm under the assumption that they're still 220 millimeter rotors. And if you compare that to other bikes on the market right now, it's in line with the MX-5 Pro and the Pro SS 2.0. However, the RAR Mantis 72 volt and the Surron Light BX are both only 203 millimeter. Alright, now let's talk about the sprocket, the chain, and the belt drive from the motor. It does not tell us anything about the sprocket in this product description, but we can see from this photo that it's a 58 tooth and the chain is a 428 chain, which is what Surronster also told us. Surronster told us that the belt is 15% wider. So from a 560 belt, that would put it as a 640 belt. And finally, Surronster told us that the primary belt pulley is now self-cleaning, so that when you're off-roading, it can self-eject rocks and debris. And if you're curious what other sprockets and chains other bikes had on the market, again, this is kind of preference. But here is the comparison. The only thing else with the 428 chain is the Talaria MX-5 Pro, but that one's got 48 teeth on its sprocket. Everything else is a 420 chain, and it does the complete range from 48 to 58 here. Alright, now let's talk about some of the functions and controls that we have available to us on the handlebars and front of the bike in general. So the site description here has very little about this. All we have is finger regenerative braking and a headlight switch. It's very hard to see any details, but it does seem to be the exact same design as the 2.0 up here, and there's not much you can see from over here. Thankfully, Surronster gave us a lot more details on this. If we go to a freeze frame, we have a lot more detail on these controls, and yes, they look almost identical to the 2.0. We have sport mode and eco mode. We've got the regen setting at off, moderate regen at 1, and stronger regen at 2, a horn, and Surronster pointed out that where there used to be a turbo button, it is now a reverse button. He also pointed out more than just being able to turn the headlight on and off. There is a blackout mode where you can turn both the headlight and taillight off at the same time. This seems to be the button over here for the headlight controls. And one thing else I'd like to point out in this photo is we can see that there are still the charging ports like the 2.0 had. Nothing at all talks about the display on the bike here, and it seems for all the world just like the 2.0 display. Same shape, size, connectors, everything. Surronster did mention that there is a new Bluetooth app for this bike. Alright, now let's talk about some details with the frame. From our product information page, we can see that the weight limit is 302 pounds. The bike with the battery weighs 167 pounds. And remember, we're guessing that battery weighs high 30s, low 40s pounds. This is probably around 127 pounds on its own without the battery in it. And we have the seat height listed as 830 millimeters, which is 32.7 inches. And if you want to compare those sizes to other bikes, this is what we have. I've also included wheelbase, and because I think this is the same frame as the 2.0, I think it's the same wheelbase as the 2.0. So when you compare to the other bikes in this category, this is the heaviest bike. And when you're comparing the Surron, it's by a good amount. It does have the highest weight limit for any of these bikes. The 2.0 is really close. And the Talaria MX-5 Pro, it doesn't say weight limit, it says recommended weight. So it can be a little bit different, but that one and the RAR Mantis are pretty low. The seat height is the same as the Pro SS 2.0. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. It is not as tall of a seat as the Talaria, but it is taller than both the RAR Mantis and the Surron. The wheelbases are all within half an inch, basically very, very, very similar between all of them. So Surronster gave us a lot more details in his video, and one of the things that he mentioned was that there's a new rear linkage, which increased the ride height by half an inch. But if we look at the 2.0, it doesn't actually tell us on the product page. We have to go to the manual to find that. And it says its seat height is 830 millimeters, which is the exact same that they gave us on the 3.0. So I guess it's the same exact height. Other things Surronster mentioned is that there's a new battery tray, and hopefully that takes care of the rattle that people were complaining about on the 2.0. He mentioned that it came with a 1-inch rise stem mount. The jack shaft axle and nut are 20% bigger. However, I could not find any exact measurements on these, so I can't tell you what those sizes are, unfortunately. He also mentioned that the skid plate has a new design, and we can see that here from this part of his video where he fell over. And here's a decent view of the new peg design. Definitely seems better than the stock Surron pegs. Another good photo of that would be here. Now, other things that we didn't mention. This seems to be the same frame as the 2.0. It seems to be the same ignition, horn, headlight, taillight, and just like the 2.0, it's also got a VIN number. So, from what I can tell, that's all that's really changed. Before we start talking about our last category, price, let's hit some of the things that we missed from this product page. We didn't really talk about the 0 to 30. We didn't talk about the range when you're going certain speeds, and we didn't talk about the charge time. Too many variables are here. The terrain, the rider weights, the battery percentage, the incline, all sorts of things. I would refer instead just to look at the battery size and the motor's power if you're interested in what's faster or what's stronger. Alright, so for price, it is starting out at $49.99. And it's on pre-order right now because this is the 2025 bike. If you compare that price to the other ones right now, this is the most expensive bike out of the bunch. It's $300 more than the Talaria MX-5 Pro, and it's $600 more than the Surron Light BX. Now, I know that one's underperformed in this, but it's against 72 volt bikes. Surron's one of the most loved and upgradable bikes there is out there. You're just going to spend a ton of money to get it up to speed with these 72 volt bikes here. But you really can't leave it out either. It's one everybody knows, it's the most loved. The Eride Pro 2.0 is down to 4,400, which is $1 less than the Surron and way more power out of the box. And coming in last for price is the RAR Mantis X at only $3,000, and that is quite a bargain. Throw in a controller upgrade for that 72 volt battery, maybe a battery with more amp hours to it, and you could have a rockin' machine. I will caution you, there's not a ton of mods for the Mantis, and the Eride Pro 3 is not going to have a ton of mods either since it's so new. However, a good chunk of the mods for the 2.0 should work. I would just be careful of what you're picking and consider things carefully that it may or may not work. So, is the Eride Pro SS 3.0 worth it for $5,000? I think so. I think when you look at the Surron, it's $600 more to get a ton more power that you would be spending several thousands on your Surron to catch up to speed. And if you're looking at 72 volt bikes, this is gonna beat all of them. $300 less at the Talaria MX-5 Pro is a close second. It's got plenty of power, it's got plenty of torque. I would consider that if you want to save the $300. When you're already spending $5,000, 300's not a ton more. So, do you want the best of the best, or do you want another solid good bike and save $300? That's all personal choice. Personally, I've already pre-ordered the Eride Pro SS 3.0. I can't wait for more information to come out about it. I hope this video helped you all make your decisions and probably answer some questions that you had about this new bike. Leave a comment down below if there's anything further you want me to look into, or if some new information comes out or something that I've missed, let me know. Also, this is a new channel for me. I created this new page specifically for e-bikes. So if you could like and subscribe and help me grow this channel out, I'll be posting videos of rides and definitely videos of the Eride Pro 3 when I get it. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, ride safe.